Hey, Rick Nahara here on KPFK. Welcome to Latino Thought Makers. We are America. Our guest today is Alfonso Trujano Sanchez. Mr. Alfonso Trujano Sanchez is a 41-year-old business entrepreneur living in Mexico City with current business enterprise in the United States as well. Alfonso started schooling in Guadalajara, Jalisco, where he attended pre-K and kindergarten. He then moved to the north of Mexico, where he attended elementary, middle school, finally ending up in Laredo, Texas. But upon graduating from high school, Alfonso went on to attend college at the Texas A&M University in Kingsville, Texas, where he achieved a degree in civil engineering. Alfonso has done over $1 billion in engineering projects so far and management experience. Alfonso has developed a knowledge and expertise in project management as one of the people that we consider a great Mexican businessman that also works in America. As what Latino Thought Makers actually believes is a border is something we should share, and I get to share the border with Alfonso and his wonderful story here. So welcome, Alfonso. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's a pleasure being here with you guys. I certainly appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure because I grew up in San Diego, so I grew up on the other side of the border. You grew up in Mexico. So we both shared that border, but of course, in the Latino culture, I'm considered basically pocho. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. Yes.
Okay. So what the pocho is, to those that don't know, I mean, I've said this before. I'm güero. I'm called güero as well. Güero just means tall, good-looking Latino man in Spanish, and I'm just translating for those that don't know Spanish. But pocho had a connotation of what would you say the word pocho, the connotation would be? Be something who's not quite.
It's probably just somebody that that mixes basically a lot of words between English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. It's not
yes.
a 100% English or not 100% Spanish.
Claro que sí, of course, we're talking about this now.
Exactamente.
There was a pocho ism right there.
There you have it.
But now what I've seen in Mexico and what a lot of people don't realize, Mexico has always been tribal. It's never been. I mean, someone from Mexico City, they would call it Chilango, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Is now someone from Guadalajara, where you're from Guadalajara, Jalisco. You would be two separate sides of the coin. I mean, it's not like you would go Mexico City. I really relate to as well. It's like same in America. If I'm growing up in LA and someone's from the Bronx, we're very different culturally. Yeah. So the same happens in Mexico. The same happens with our Latino culture. I think a lot of people don't realize there's certain things that I joke about in comedy, but really, our differences is where the comedy is, but we're always more similar than different in the end. So I grew up in San Diego, so I was called a pocho. When I'd go over to Tijuana, I'd be called the pocho kid.
Yeah.
And so we're neither American nor truly Mexican. We're kind of that pocho, we're that gray in the middle, which I think is what life is, don't you think?
I believe so, Rick. I mean, we have to think of it as America as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at it is not necessarily, I guess, North America, Central America, South America. I think we ought to consider it as just one America.
Mm-hmm.
You said it right. It's just there's a lot of cultural differences even within countries. Mm-hmm. Mexico, Colombia is the same thing. Somebody from Bogota is very different from somebody from Cali, for instance.
Yeah, and also we're dealing with social economic. I mean, if you're
Definitely.
If you're rich in Mexico, you're extremely rich. It's that sort of thing. And now that's happening more in America. We're losing our middle class.
Yeah.
The hallmark of Mexico has been you've had a strong middle class, which has helped.
That is true, but unfortunately, also we got to keep in mind that poverty in Mexico is extreme.
Mm-hmm. The average wage is something like $5 a day or something like that.
Nowadays is more like probably $3.50, $3.50.
Wow.
I mean, it is very severe poverty. The way the value of things are completely unbalanced to your income.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves a tremendous gap between what you take home and what you are able to afford nowadays. So it's becoming, you said it right, in the U.S. we're losing the middle class. In Mexico, I think it's just about the same. It's either you have money or you don't.
Mm-hmm. Now what's also happening now is we have Latinos in America is something like 58 million, I believe, our recent census, and almost like 70% of that is Mexican.
That's true.
So
34.4 million to be exact.
34.4 million and
Legal Mexicans.
legal Mexicans in America. And if there's another quinceañera, those numbers will start to climb.
Definitely, without a doubt. Very rapidly.
Cinco de Mayo is a big birth rate. About 9 months after Cinco de Mayo, it's huge. It's just amazing.
Yes.
So
there's too many margaritas going on.
Too many margaritas. And the quinceañera has gone wrong. Things happen. But you lived in both worlds. You lived in Mexico.
Yes.
And you lived in the United States, Texas.
Right.
Although some people in America couldn't consider Texas quite America, but
people in Mexico are still fighting it.
That's right. But at the same time, we're so interconnected. In fact, I was at the Alamo in Texas, and I remember going there, and the big Texas guy gave me a tour of the Alamo, and he kept talking to me, and every time they talk about the Mexicans going over those walls and killing those poor Americans, he'd always look at me for a little bit longer in that crowd. But people don't realize there were Mexicans inside the Alamo fighting against the Mexicans outside the Alamo.
Right.
They were the Texicans.
That's
so we have
true.
always been involved. And also Mexico has given a squadron of planes during World War II.
Mhm.
We've been involved.
201st.
201st was squadron of planes sent to aid America.
True.
So we and Mexico's what third largest trading partner is Mexico?
I would say at this point, according to numbers, it's probably the second
largest.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably bigger than France, England, and Germany combined.
That is true.
So people don't realize the amount of trade between us and Mexico. And you as a young kid growing up in both worlds, you of course feel allegiance to Mexico.
Of course.
And we should feel allegiance to Mexico too. They are our partners.
Well, we share over 3,000 kilometers of border. So
we share that border. Difference than saying, when they talk about building a wall, I don't believe walls work. I mean, the Great Wall of China didn't work. The Berlin Wall didn't work. Hadrian's Wall didn't work. I don't think this wall is going to work. But you've been moving from business, and now you're starting to go toward politics.
Right.
How did that start to happen?
Well, that's been quite an interesting unfold or development on my life. When I was soon after graduating from college, as you said, I went on to working for an engineering firm and got involved in a lot of projects. But at the same time, I also started getting involved in politics in Texas with political campaigns as a volunteer.
Yeah.
I guess I was doing a pretty good job because I started getting asked to become part of the staff of the campaigns, and then all of a sudden more into a leading role.
So they took you from the guy putting the campaign posters on the lawns.
That's exactly right. I did all of that. I did all the the walking, the neighborhood walks, and taking water to everybody and driving people around to the polls. I did all of that. Standing at the polls during the E-Day.
Yeah.
Oh, I have 100% experience on all of that. But then, like I said, I guess I did a good job of doing all of that, and I was, moving up the ladder. I moved up the ladder pretty quick. Started getting involved in a lot of decision-making roles within campaigns, and then, one of my companies in Texas that I've opened up started focusing precisely on that, on campaign consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and your main thing was consulting with a Latino perspective.
That's exactly right. Yes, approaching doing the Latino approach, the EOTV programs for Latinos. Get out the vote for those that are not political savvies.
Yeah, and that's a big problem within our culture is that we don't have the history of voting. I mean, it's the
big problem. Yes,
there's a joke, and I remember hearing a joke was a Mexican politician was being shown a computer system by an American politician, and the American politician said, "This computer system is the best in the world. We can know within 24 hours who the next president of the United States will be." And the Mexican politician turns to him and says, "That's nothing. In Mexico, we know before the election who the next president will be."
That's exactly right. In fact, we pretty much know the second day after the first president, after the president takes office, we know the second day who the next president is going to be. So now, traditionally,
and American politics, and also I can speak for American politics. We have a lot of influence in our elections as well. which of course is another show. But looking at this, is you saw the need for Latinos to be involved in politics. You built that niche market.
Without a doubt. We're such a big community here in the United States, and definitely not equally represented in Congress. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I-
not equally represented in most areas,
Everywhere.
everywhere. I mean, even Hollywood, just me working in Hollywood, is an Annenberg study just came out. There's less roles for Latinos in film than before. There was more Latinos.
Yeah.
Also, the business of that is that we spend more money on tickets than any other group. So we're actually paying to see ourselves not on screen, which is the height
Yeah.
of some very bad ego busting for us Latinos. But there is a problem, and we have the problem in politics, and you're one of the guys that are trying to change that. So, when was that aha moment for you, where you sat there and said, "We need to be involved in politics. I need to be involved in politics. I need to make a change."
I think doing all of this community outreach, community visits, and both in the U.S. and in Mexico, looking at the living conditions of
Mhm.
certain communities, and having the experience and the knowledge of um, the world having solutions for those type of issues, for those type of situations, such as poverty problems and stuff like that. It really got me to think and start saying, hey, there's a lot of solutions available for all of these people. There should not be a need for these people to be living under these conditions that they live in. There should not be any reason why people should not be interested in politics. Um, Politicians nowadays have been on both sides of the wall or
Mhm.
the river.
Yeah.
Should be are not sending the proper message to us voters. And
Is there going to be is it almost not turning into a political caste of people that basically there's the politician and there's the voters, and the way I look at it is the politicians work for us.
right,
You know,
they should.
they
They're
should.
supposed to.
They're supposed to work for us. I mean, I know when Vice President Pence came into Hamilton and the Hamilton cast talked to him, I thought very politely actually, and people were outraged. I thought, our vice president, which is democratically elected to a certain degree,
Yeah,
Pence
both agree.
and all those, they work for us.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think we have to keep telling is if you do not get involved in politics, politics will get involved with you, and you need to be involved.
Rick, we got to think of it this way. We practice, or um, we practice politics every day. Everybody, every single citizen is involved in politics every day. I mean, at home, don't you do politics with your family, with your kids, with your
Mhm.
wife? I laugh about because I remember, as a youngster that always wanted to go out and all of that. I would always come to my parents and say, "Hey, I think I need to help you do the grass, or I need to help you wash the cars."
Mhm.
And but that had a reason, had a purpose, and the purpose is I wanted to make sure I did the job, and then when it was time for me to ask to go out, I was going to get a yes. So I
Yeah.
was doing politics. You always do politics everywhere you
No,
go.
it's true. I learned
You-
politics with my children. My little daughter, when they're really nice to me for like a day,
Exactly.
I'll see them do chores and do. I'm thinking, okay, what are they about to ask?
Exactly. There's something coming up,
Yeah.
right? So I just believe that nowadays politicians are really have forgotten the meaning of of doing politics, of practicing politics,
Mhm.
or exercising politics, because politics is simply uh, dealing with another person for a common benefit.
Mhm.
And particularly in Mexico, that's definitely not happening. Has not happened over a century, where politicians, they only do the so-called "to me," "for me," and only for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, isn't it that kind of been truly has been the problem in Mexico is the politics. I mean, it has been. I mean, it's amazing. Right now, Peña Nieto how's he doing in the polls?
Peña Nieto has the lowest approval rate ever in the history of politics in Mexico.
So that's kind of interesting. Trump has the lowest right now, and Peña Nieto has
It
the
has
lowest.
yeah, but you got to keep in mind that also, speaking of Peña Nieto, he went in with one of the highest also ever recorded in the history of Mexican politics.
Yeah, I can't say the same for Trump.
Definitely not. Yeah, no, we agree on that. Unfortunately, it's so sad that there's really not a legacy that Peña Nieto's leaving behind. I don't think there's anything he can say. Hey, I'm proudly leaving office and I have this behind me, this legacy, other than the airport, which he spent so many millions of.
The one in Mexico City.
The one in Mexico City.
I was there. It's an excellent airport. I was I was impressed.
Well, his new project, which is the new airport, should be open probably within 2 years, my understanding. And that's just about the only thing that he's gonna truly say, hey, I did this project for Mexico. Yeah. But then, again, he rapidly is losing, keeps on losing. Even today, his points keep on dropping and dropping and dropping. It's just so sad.
We pre-record these shows a lot of times, and it's always wonder what's going to happen in the future when these shows air. And I guarantee when this show airs, there'll be some controversy with Donald Trump. I mean, I can almost pretty much say that if you're hearing this, I'm talking to you from the past and the future. Yes. People listening to this show is that Trump's doing something, he's tweeting something bad, and that's the way it's going to be. So you saw the politics in Mexico. You saw the need for change.
Definitely.
You're in America.
Right.
And you're a businessman, successful, doing what you're doing. And you still feel politics is the answer to get involved.
Yes, I think politics is definitely a way of being able to implement a positive change in people, doing positive influencing on people.
And we have 35.4 legal million Mexicans in the United States. Now, now, of course, that segment can vote in Mexico, correct?
That is correct. After 2015, I'm sorry, after 2008, the new laws in Mexico, electoral laws changed and allow for Mexicans being outside Mexico to be able to cast votes, such as a mail-in ballot or absentee vote.
How many million are able to vote in Mexico from that group?
Well, if we look at the United States, again, saying that there's 34.4 million, we have about 62% of those that can vote today. And which is a big number. Now, also keep in mind that all of them that are legal here do have pretty much their voter ID card in Mexico. However, it may be expired, or there's infinite reasons why they won't not be able to vote. However, like we said, about 60% of those 34 million have the ability to vote next year on Mexico's presidential elections. There's an important fact I'd like to share with you, which is if those people would make conscience of the importance of voting in Mexico, I can honestly tell you that the Mexican community in the U.S. could elect Mexico's next president without a doubt. Even with an 11% vote.
Really?
Mexican Americans would have a Mexican president.
Now, in Mexico, you have the PRI and the PAN,
right?
Two biggest organizations. How would they, in the Mexican system, can you, if you're a member of the PRI or the PAN, when it comes to the general election for the president, you can vote on who the president's going to be, whether it's a PRI candidate or a PAN candidate, all that. Is there other political parties in Mexico that are strong as the PRI and the PAN? Yeah,
there's actually another one. There's two more that are just not as strong, but pretty much in the pack, the four pack as we call it, which is the PRD and another one that's called Morena. Morena. That's right. Movimiento de Rejuvenación Nacional.
It sounded like someone's name. Morena.
Right. Well, I mean, it's if you think about it, in Mexico, a morena, it's a young lady or a lady that it's morena. Just brown, brownish skin.
So it's a beautiful party.
Well, it is a beautiful party. Unfortunately, not beautiful people that leads it. I'm
So
sorry to say it, but that's how it is.
so the voting bloc in America of Mexicans here could truly change the political parties in Mexico.
Without a doubt, if they really wake up and they make conscience of what their families in Mexico are going through, that's, let me say that again. If the Mexican Americans here in the U.S. wake up and make conscience of what their families in Mexico are living or are going through, meaning, all the corruption, all the violence, all of that, then yes, they could get together, they could unite, they could become a very strong force and elect, without a doubt, Mexico's next president.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things is people have to realize, and I think for all of us, I'm talking American voters here and Mexican voters there, and the Mexicans here, they can vote in Mexico, is that voting can make a change. With the two big issues for us is they always call Mexicans here the sleeping giant.
Right.
I say we're not the sleeping giant, we're the uninspired giant.
I agree.
So if you can see a chance for change, you'll act on it. So if you have a tradition and you see that my vote counts, and I think that's what's happening to America, the reason we have, something like half Americans don't vote, they can vote. I
Right.
mean, it's these elections are I hate to say it, it's sometimes that old man on the lawn, they're yelling at the minority kids to get off the lawn. It kind of reminds me of the voters here in America, unfortunately. It's people that really aren't thinking almost progressively. They're thinking about, maintain, keep America, that whole idea of let's make America great again.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous. America is great. Let's make America better.
That's true.
That's all it is making better. Because when you sit there and say, let's go make America great, then you have to decide, when was America great? Because in certain times it wasn't great when segregation. It wasn't great when women didn't have rights. It wasn't great when they couldn't vote. It wasn't. These are times that aren't great. So your policy, your thing is helping Mexico become more Mexico by using Mexicans in America getting involved in the Mexican system in Mexico, which is our trading partner
Right.
and our ally. So that's a good thing for everybody, correct?
That is definitely, I would say, yes. That would be a great thing if we are able to achieve that goal, where we have the two nations become stronger, be united, not by a wall, but rather by
A bridge,
a
almost.
bridge or more bridges,
Mhm.
along those 3,000 kilometers of border.
Yeah,
Um,
that we share.
and the U.S. has a lot better alliances or a lot better trading relationships with other countries such as England, France, as you mentioned it. However, they don't share the border.
Yeah.
And we do share that with Mexico. Unfortunately, Mexico has not taken advantage of that.
Mhm.
So it is definitely through like I said, through positive influence and good political change. I think we can. I truly believe we can definitely make a change into our relationships between the two countries.
So you've been creating this idea, and I think it's a good idea, and it's because it's really about political involvement in the end. That's
Right.
really what it is. So, and like I say, is if the will of people is to vote whoever or to elect whoever, I'm going to stand by it. At the same time, if we don't have all the people voting, if we don't have the people engaged,
Yeah.
then we have a problem. Then we have special interests. Then we have all these different areas, and corruption especially. Mexico's has had a history of some pretty tough corruption, correct?
Even today,
Mhm.
that is what has prevented Mexico from growing. That is what has prevented Mexico from being an interesting country that would be able to participate more internationally. Mexico is part of the well-known G20. However, it's not part of the G5.
Mhm.
And Mexico, because of all everything that it has as a nation, everything that it offers as a country, in terms of natural resources, in terms of labor force, in terms of education,
Mhm.
should be aiming for becoming part of the G5, not
Well, a lot of things people don't realize, and I know this because, growing up in the border, there are more engineers graduating from Mexico than there are in Germany today.
Yes,
So,
and MIT is full of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them in MIT.
yeah. So, and just if you want to know about Mexican engineering, just look at any one of those amazing temples. It's like we've had generations of engineers.
Yes.
And you're an engineer yourself,
Right.
so people aren't realizing this great technological resurgence in Mexico that's happening. Just in Baja, in terms of genetic, medical, all these different things that are really growing. Mexico and America, our population of Latinos in America, is a young population. But what people aren't realizing is when the older population, predominantly more Anglo, and actually retires, the population that is actually going to be giving them their tax base is Mexicans. So how well we're educated versus incarcerated depends is all our future. So you've started a program now to get out the vote in the United States and to vote into Mexico.
Right.
So now we have great organizations here. Voto Latino is a big favorite of mine.
True.
Where they get out.
Excellent organization.
Excellent organization, and they're getting out the vote. And which, to me, this is the two areas to me the most important in the Latino world are education and voting.
Without a doubt.
So you're championing both.
Definitely, we've initiated an organization in Texas. It's actually called El Renacer de Mexico, and
well, now for our English-speaking audiences, will you translate that?
Of course, this organization is called Mexico's Renaissance or Rebirth.
Rebirth.
We honestly like to translate it as Renaissance because if you look at the Renaissance period, that's what it was about. Change, transition, going from a very bad period in Europe, Central Europe.
Dark Ages,
to
Enlightenment and Renaissance, all those words that are about progress.
Progressive words. And so the intent of that organization is to unite all of these Mexican communities. Traditionally here in the U.S., the communities from each state in Mexico tend to be together, and then but not united with the other communities.
One of the problems, I think, one of the problems within the psyche of the Latino world or the Mexican world is been a chance of. One is we've had a problem with transitions of power. In other words, when the PRI got in, they were in forever. And then all of a sudden, the ban
70 years.
70 years. So the joke was always Mexico won the revolution for the PRI. That was the problem.
Yes.
So now we're and I think a lot of people are evolving in terms of politically thinking. Is that the reason the corruption was there a lot of times for people was they didn't think of themselves as Mexico. They thought themselves as a family. Our family will take care of our other family members, and so we're looking that way. When you're corrupting the government of Mexico, it's not so much a problem because you're looking after your family.
True.
And that's kind of the issue. Now, to build up the government of Mexico, where people start to trust it within Mexico, is going to take a lot of change. So your organization, what would you say is the goal of your organization?
Yes, that, like I said, the goal is to unite all these Mexicans in the United States and make conscience of the situation in Mexico. Also help us to convey the message to their Mexican families in Mexico that there are different alternatives to next year's elections, that they need to start looking at independent candidates just to try to stay away from the traditional political parties.
And that's also a movement in America. I mean, Bernie Sanders was all about the independent party. Most people are not Democrat or Republican; they're independents.
Yeah,
but they don't have a party they can get behind. So you're changing. What you're doing now is you're creating that. Is it nonpartisan? I mean, in other words,
definitely nonpartisan.
It's just all about voting.
It's all about voting, nonpartisan, completely independent-minded. and definitely looking forward to achieve that conscience in Mexico. There are some good independent candidates that will be on the ballot, and unfortunately, the candidates that come from the parties are just the same as of the bad pack. So we are trying to achieve that conscience to happen.
How are you funding this? Because that's going to be the big question. Because everyone's terrified of any sort of election, fraud or too much influence and things like that's happening in our country right now. We have super PACs and people it's corporations basically funding elections, whereas people aren't.
Yeah.
Is your funding coming from would you say from the people itself?
Yeah, definitely. What we're doing is all our members are contributing based on their financial ability. Myself, obviously, I'm using my own funding that I have to move around and promote our organization. You said it best. In Mexico, traditionally, parties or elections are funded by money that belongs to the people, because parties are funded with money that belongs to the people. We're definitely not at that position, and we don't want to be at that position. We want to make sure that our funding comes from people that believe on what we're doing, that believe on really making a positive change. And this is only based on contributions by individuals more than anything.
So, how would someone find your organization?
We have obviously our website, www.renacimientodemexico.org. We also are in Facebook, Twitter, also by El Renacer de Mexico. They can look us up on that end, and also we just joined another organization in Texas that's called the National Hispanic Youth Organization, which we're putting together a scholarship program.
The NHYO?
NHYO, that's correct.
You got to get those names that are
that is
NYO. So those organizations are getting behind you. You're getting out the vote here in America.
Yes.
And I thank you for coming aboard. You're definitely one of our Latino thought makers, because you're putting a different idea out there, of an idea that I think is a long time coming. We need to be involved. We live in a global world. There's no denying it. Borders are falling down around the world, and I think that's a good thing. I think what our involvement in Mexico, especially from the Mexicans here in the United States, I mean, that is our hope. I mean, in a strange way, that we can have both. We can live in America. We can still live and be a part of Mexico, and together it makes our country so much stronger.
I completely agree.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, Alfonso. Alfonso Trujano Sanchez. We'll be back with more Latino Thought Makers.
Thank you, Rick. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.